Will council please come to order, and will the clerk please call the roll?
Anderson,
Present.
Oliver,
Here.
Ford,
Here.
Hagersmith,
Here.
Mattingly, Sutphen,
Here.
Watson.
Present.
Will the vice mayor please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
Under God.
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will begin today with the consent agenda, and that includes approval of town council minutes for May 7th and 14th, Ordinance 2051 to amend Ordinance 1895, which rezoned 33.8 acres of land at 520 Patrick Henry Drive. We're going to introduce that this evening and schedule a public hearing for July 9. We have Ordinance 2052, authorizing the withdrawal of land in the agricultural and forestal district. We'll introduce that ordinance and also schedule it for a public hearing on July 9. Ordinance 2054 to repeal Town Section 18-407 through 18-417 pertaining to industrial cost recovery charges. We'll talk about that also at a public hearing on July 9. Ordinance 2055 vacating a portion of public right-of-way located at Progress Street. That's scheduled also for a public hearing on July 9. Resolution 6B24, writing off the town's uncollectible water, sewer, refuse service, and stormwater receivables and real estate taxes. Next item is Resolution 6C24, referring to the Planning Commission, a proposed zoning ordinance amendment to the R4 zoning district to create a new alternative small lot residential development option. Didn't they already do that?
Re-referring it because
Doing
referring
it again.
resolutions expire after a certain amount of time. So the planning commission's almost done with it, yeah.
That's what I thought, that they've been gnawing on it this whole time.
Right.
Okay,
It'll be coming to you all this summer.
okay, great. A proposed amendment to the 2022-26 Consolidated Plan and 2024 Action Plan for Home and Community Development Block Grant Programs. A fireworks permit for Independence Day. We'll have our celebration on July 4. And a contract for design-build services at 414 North Main Street. And Michael has a reading, I think.
Yep, I'll start with the statement. The Virginia State and Local Government Conflict of Interest Act requires that I make disclosure to be recorded in town records. In any case in which I am forbidden to participate, therefore I make the following disclosure. The transaction involved is the approval of amendment to the 2022-2026 Consolidated Plan and the 2024 Action Plan for Home and Community Development Block Grant Programs with a vote scheduled for June 11th. My personal interest in this transaction is my employment in Community Housing Partners, which receives HUD funding. This funding is part of the annual plan. CHP is located at 448 Deeper Street, Christiansburg, Virginia. I affirmatively state that I will not vote or in any manner act on behalf of the Town Council regarding this approval. It is my understanding that this item will be removed from the consent agenda on June 11th and voted on separately. I will then abstain from voting on that item. So seeing that reading, I would like to request that we remove item H from the consent agenda, and I'll go ahead and make a motion. I move approval of the consent agenda without item H.
Second.
We have a motion and a second without item H. What is, do what you're supposed to do.
Oliver,
Aye.
Ford,
Aye.
Hagersmith,
Aye.
Mattingly,
Aye.
Sutphen,
Aye.
Watson,
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye. I move,
Yeah.
ready?
Yeah.
I move approval of item H of the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for item H.
Ford,
Aye.
Hagersmith,
Aye.
Mattingly,
Aye.
Sutphen,
Abstain.
Watson,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Oliver.
Aye.
Moving on down to public hearings. Ordinance 2056, an ordinance to authorize the use of photo speed monitoring devices in school crossing zones by adding new section 12-114 to the town code. And are you doing the staff presentation? Our attorney will do the staff presentation.
talking about for a while. I'll explain a little bit more, but there've been concerns for a long time about, speeding in school zones, particularly some of the ones that are on the busier roads, like Price's Fork. And the police department have really done what they can. They try to work with the schools, but there's only so much as far as the way of staff power that they have. But the studies document that there is a problem. When officers are available, we'll run radar at that area. Writing a traffic ticket takes a little bit of time. So if we talked about before, 10 or 15 minutes, and the officer may be sitting there watching other people go through the intersection. Based on our early discussions, we talked about putting this on Let's Talk Blacksburg, which we did, and we got some feedback. We've also heard from the traffic committee about their concerns about this as well. The state code lets local governments adopt photo speed enforcement programs for work zones and also school crossing zones. It's a fairly recent change, but a lot of localities are going this way. Not that you should always do everything that the crowd does, but it is more and more common. Tonight, this next bullet says that the state code lets you adopt an ordinance, so what's before you is an ordinance that would establish this type of program. Part of some of the protections, there has to be fairly conspicuous signage, flashing lights. There's a 10-mile-per-hour threshold, so you're going to have to be a reasonable amount over the speed limit before this would kick in. It's a civil penalty, so it's not going to go on a motorist driving record. Doesn't add points. It doesn't have insurance consequences if a summons is issued under this. The state code authorizes up to $100 for violation, and that's what the draft ordinance or the ordinance tonight on the agenda authorizes. There are some rights to contest this. If there's a mistake with the process or the argument about who is driving the vehicle, there's a process to contest this. And this is some information from the chief, but it seems like this has shown to be pretty effective around the state, people that have been doing this. There are a lot of summonses issued, but they've also seen in some of the bigger localities a drop-off in the rate of violations. The sheriff and the county are going to move forward with this in the areas in the county that have schools. We're looking at using the same vendor. Right now, the next steps would be, if council approves this, would be to finish reviewing the contract to see if we'll come to terms with the vendor. We're looking at Blue Line Solutions, which is doing this around the state, and there's a cooperative procurement in Wythe County that we're able to use to contract with them. And then after that, I think it's going to be important to get the word out. It wouldn't really go live until school starts. But we've heard from council that you don't want this to be a surprise to anyone. So, and there's a lot of traffic in some of those areas. So that's what the next step would. One of the next steps if you vote to approve this tonight. Any questions?
I'm just going to bring this up here because I just want to make sure that the public's aware. So I'm the only council member with high school students, and if I have a high schooler driving my car and he gets this ticket, it comes to me because the car is registered in my name.
That is right.
But it is not under my insurance. It is just a $100 fine. And then I get to exact deal with what punishment happens in my household, but it doesn't affect my insurance. It doesn't affect my driving record, correct?
Right. And that's you'll end up suffering less if you get a civil penalty through the system than if you actually received a citation from an officer.
But it's not going to go to my insurance, and it's not going to raise my rates.
That's a key deal factor in this.
Okay. Thank
I
you.
also wanted to bring up the point that we have discussed creating a fund where these citations, the revenue from these citations will go that can fund public safety projects.
Yes, you don't have to do that, but that's what council has talked about. So I think when we get to the stage where a contract is in place, funds start becoming realized on this, then council can set up a fund in the budget and state its intent on how to use that.
Thank you.
Got it kind of attached to this.
Do we have public comment on ordinance 2056? Seeing no one, I'll close that portion. What is council's pleasure to do with ordinance 2056?
I move approval of ordinance 2056.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Hagersmith,
Aye.
Mattingly,
Aye.
Sutphen,
Aye.
Watson,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Oliver,
Aye.
Ford,
Aye.
Moving on to Resolution 6A24, and this is to authorize acquisition of property and interests in property for the Harding Avenue Stormwater and Pedestrian Project. And we start with the staff
Larry will have the
presentation.
staff report on that as well.
So I don't have a PowerPoint on this, but I wanted to kind of go over what's in the resolution that council would be voting on. It refers to the Harding Avenue Stormwater and Pedestrian Project, which is a series of improvements on Harding Road all the way up to where it goes out of town to improve the existing drainage there, which is inadequate, and to establish better pedestrian amenities like sidewalks, better bike lanes. And what's happening is we're having to retrofit an existing area. It's not like a new subdivision where all these things are built at the same time with the houses. So we're having to go, as the ordinance says, well, let me go back for a second. So the council has determined that this is an important project. It approved the capital improvement project, and all these things are, things that are important goals for the council: public safety, stormwater management and control. It will be necessary to acquire easements for this project. So there will be, generally speaking, sidewalk easements, some drainage easements, and also some temporary construction easements, because to build these things like sidewalks, you're going to have to go back a little bit on the landowner's property to do the work. Staff has acquired a number of these easements already, and we're talking to landowners as well. But what this ordinance does is it confirms the need for the project. It confirms that staff's acquisition of the interest to date, and it authorizes further acquisitions. And the most important thing is it authorizes, if resolution can't be realized, the use of eminent domain to acquire easements. So that's what the resolution does.
Do we have any questions? Seeing none, what is council, public comment on Resolution 6A24?
What up, council? Hi. So I just want to know what the plan is when it comes to planting trees and like sequestering carbon, because you're going to be doing construction, or at least moving back on land, putting a sidewalk down. So I would like to see, in your plans, any kind of trees, like that aren't surrounded by concrete. Please, just consider something like that. And if you have something, I'd like to hear about what y'all are going to do. Thank you.
The project engineer, Ms. Howard, is here, so we could arrange for you to talk to her after the meeting.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak during public comment? Seeing no one, what is council's pleasure on 6A24?
I move approval of resolution 6A24.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mattingly,
Aye.
Sutphen,
Aye.
Watson,
Aye.
Aye.
Oliver,
Aye.
Ford,
Aye.
Hagersmith.
Aye. We move on now to citizen comments. And please come forward and state your name and address. And you can speak on the topic of your choosing. We have a little stoplight here. Some of you are acquainted with that, and others not. But the manager will hit green when you begin, and you can go till it turns red.
Good evening. My name is Jody Booth Daniels, Blacksburg. Thank you for the opportunity to bring to your attention once again the special historic African American building on Gilbert Street. This hall was constructed in 1906 in Newtown, a segregated black neighborhood. The building was home to 3 mutual aid organizations, which were vital during the age of Reconstruction and into the 60s. This building stands as a sole remnant of Newtown, which was destroyed by urbanization. The town owns the building, and the Blacksburg, next one, please, and the Blacksburg Foundation rents and operates it. There's a complex relationship between the town and the foundation regarding this historic building. The town holds the deed to the site, thus is required to honor the deed's conditions. The town provides substantial benefits that no other nonprofit in the region receive, including an annual allocation of over $112,000 derived from public funds, as well as a significant number of perks, a potential addition of $35,000. Next slide, please. Last August, the council decided to renew the operating agreement for the foundation for only 1 year, and the purpose was to decide what changes to the operating agreement may be appropriate. With August quickly approaching, it's time to revisit the changes and to invite public input. Next slide, please. During the work session last August, Mr. Spencer provided guidance, including the need to engage and involve public as much as possible. Has this been achieved? What is the process and timeline? MCCRC, a grassroots initiative of Christiansburg Institute, requests to be included in that process. Next slide. The last slide. We request that the agreement be reviewed annually, align with the town values as well as the deed, and includes metrics for measuring accountability. Some points to consider. This public foundation's board and committee meeting should be open to all visitors. All financial records should be public. The foundation should welcome and include all who wish to volunteer. The current requirement, as stated on their website, includes the threat of background investigation. This is troubling. The Gilbert Street property should be as accessible to visitors and as well staffed as the Draper Road property, with both sites receiving equal funding from the town. On March 28th, visitors, including an official of Virginia Humanities, were forbidden to tour the hall. This is not acceptable. The agreement should require hiring a full-time, culturally competent executive director, as well as a curator or collections manager. As a reminder, the foundation has possessions of importance of town records, as well as very rare African American artifacts. Thank you.
Thank you. Who else would like to speak?
Hello, my name's Christine King, part of the Nelly's Cave community in Blacksburg. I'm just here to remind you all of the conditions of the deed that were signed from the town to the town from the members of the St. Luke and Oddfellows Hall, one being my ancestor, my great-grandfather, Aubrey Mills Sr. And it reads that the town will use the Oddfellows Hall for the purposes of educating, collecting, preserving, and presenting the history and contributions of Black people in Blacksburg. I feel like we could do a whole lot better with that one, educating. The town will keep the Oddfellows Hall in its current location. The town will preserve the Oddfellows Hall structure, maintain it, and restore it in accordance with accepted historic building standards, including applying for state and national historic designation. The town will form a subcommittee of the Blacksburg Museum Committee that will consist of members of the organizations that built the Oddfellows Hall and or their descendants, and representatives from the community interested in the preservation and presentation of the history of the Black community, whose charge will be to advise the museum committee, develop programs, and raise funds to supplement operating and maintaining the Oddfellows Hall. I can speak to the fact that there's no funds being raised for this building, and each time that I do try to change that, I get pushback, and it makes me question as to who is responsible. Is it the museum or is it the town that needs to make sure that that's happening? In addition to what Jody has said, I was also at the tour when we were not allowed to go into St. Luke and Oddfellows Hall, and being a descendant of someone that signed over this deed of conditions to you all, and my ancestors also built St. Luke and Oddfellows Hall, I found that that was very, it made me feel not good, to put it lightly. And so I was wondering what all would be done about that and how we can prevent that from happening in the future. I've gotten apologies from several people, but none were the person that actually would not allow me access to St. Luke and Oddfellows Hall, which makes me feel that they think that there's nothing wrong with that. And that person is still a part of the museum board. So I'd also like to know what is going to be done about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah.
I'm Robin McCarley. I reside at 940 Colwood Way in Blacksburg. And I'm just here this evening to draw your attention to item C on the consent agenda about ordinance 2052. This was taken up last week, tonight, by the Planning Commission agenda. And at that time, they voted unanimously to approve that withdrawal of land from the AFD at 701 Bishop Road. The subdivision in which I live backs up to this property and has frontage. That property has frontage along one of the roadways in our subdivision. And what I wanted to point out, make clear to the town council tonight is that you'll be taking this up in July, that the vote last week was based on a memorandum from the planner's office. So this was dated April 12th, 2024. This is from Matthew Sampa. That's planner number 1. And in that report, there is basically a recommendation. Let me read it verbatim to you. The staff has determined that the subdivision does adhere. This is a proposed subdivision as part of this AFD land withdrawal. Staff has determined that the subdivision does adhere to the language of a 2003 deed restricting use of the land and the number of lots that the land can be subdivided into. The AFD withdrawal, along with administrative review of the minor subdivision plat, can plan accordingly. This report has, in the last 2 or 3 days, been corrected by the planner's office, and specifically calls out the fact that they made a recommendation to the Planning Commission that was rendering or making a decision based on legal interpretation, which they have since removed. But I want to point out to the council that the Planning Commission voted last week unanimously based on what I would refer to as a flawed decision-making process, that at the time they did not have that information, and there was quite a bit of discussion about that particular deed restriction, which in here they were trying to enforce that, which what I understand is not part of the Commission's capabilities. They're not supposed to offer legal reference to individual deed restrictions. So I just want to bring that out to you because there are a lot of folks in my neighborhood who are very concerned about this, and we feel that this process has been flawed, and that we actually request that that be deferred to a further time in the future whenever the council has had sufficient time to actually go back, talk to the commission, talk to the planner, and make sure that they have the correct interpretation of what's going on at that point in time. So thank you this evening for your time and attention. I really appreciate you listening. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that something we can speak to at this point, or is that?
It would be better if I'd be happy to speak to the gentleman after the meeting and Well, it'll be on your agenda next week for a public hearing review.
Okay.
There's some things that, yeah, I have some things to say about it, but I think it would be better for me to talk to the gentleman and talk to you at the next week.
Okay, thank you for coming. Who else would like to speak under citizen comments?
I have a presentation. Okay, and just before I start, before the time starts, I just want to say I am respectful of your time. I also have 3 children waiting for me at home, so I prepared a 1-page paper. So just, give me your attention and not the clock, but I do have that in mind, your time. So I'm here for to end fluoridation, pretty much. So as you know, my name is Gabrielle Spinacher Parker, 2428 Ridge Road in Blacksburg. So firstly, Michael, I know that you stated in a Virginia Tech interview that taxpayers coming to complain about fluoridation is super annoying to you, but I hope after today you will take this public health matter a little more seriously. On this matter, Leo Spear, a physician and biochemist, stated that there has been a gross distortion of facts, and in the absence of true facts, contradiction has been accepted as truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth. I'm here to present that truth that I've uncovered in my senior honors research classes, and since graduating has become the focus of my research. I must admit, I was shocked to find out that the forward-thinking, environmentally conscious Blacksburg participates in this dangerous practice. Whether this is due to lack of proper sources or willful ignorance, we will find out after this presentation. So to begin, next slide, please. To begin, fluoridation is a violation of our constitutional rights. That's the First and 14th Amendment protecting individuals against medication against their own will, which fluoridation is. There's no similarities between chlorination and fluoridation. It is also a violation of our personal liberties, and it targets the most vulnerable of our population, that being the malnourished, pregnant women, children, and people with chronic illnesses like kidney disease. Next slide, please. So you'll have to click a couple times. I messed up the transition. Okay. So what is fluoride? Fluorine is the element consisting of 2 fluorine atoms bounded together. It is a pale yellow, highly toxic reactive gas. Its diatomic form makes it the most electronegative and reactive of all elements, as it has to snatch electrons to relieve its core tension. This is why it can cut through steel like butter and turn asbestos incandescent. It can form compounds with almost all of their elements, releasing significant amounts of energy. This is why Mother Nature loves us, because it keeps this monster under lock and key, as it is usually found in nature bound with other elements. These are fluorides. Fluoride is a negatively charged ion of fluorine, and it forms when fluorine gains 1 electron, resulting in the formula F negative. Now with the captured electron, the tiny fluoride ion can get close to big molecules like proteins or DNA, forming powerful bonds with hydrogen and disrupting the normal functioning of the very fabric of life. Change slide, please. Oh, sorry, it won't happen after that. So what do you think of when you think of fluoride? You probably think of water, toothpaste, smiling children with pearly white teeth. That is not the whole picture. Next slide, please. The fluoride lies at the core of some of the world's greatest fortunes, like that of the Mellon, DuPonts, and Carnegies. Industrially, it is used to produce explosives, rubbers, solvent, uranium hexafluoride gas for the atomic bomb, refrigerants like Freon, Teflon plastics, pesticides, water-resistant clothing. The list goes on and on. In the 1930s, it was used as a popular rodent killer. So this is vital, why we need to end this practice in our area, as we have an arsenal that open burns a lot of these products. These processes create forever chemicals like PFOA, PFOS. Now you know what the F stands for. Next slide, please. Very likely the first disease known to man, fluorine gases are released from volcanic eruptions. So this has plagued mankind for centuries, causing dental and skeletal fluorosis. Dental fluorosis is tooth decay, and skeletal fluorosis is the deterioration and malformation of bones due to fluoride consumption. It's been known under various names like denti scritti in Italy, Darmus in North Africa, dientes viados in Argentina, and in the U.S., Colorado brown stain, Texas teeth, cold mouth, and eventually become known dental fluorosis or mottled teeth. It would take over nearly 2,000 years to discover this abnormality was due to the intolerance of fluoride in our water, food, and air. Next slide. So for the time of sake, I will just kind of go through the early research on fluoride. In 1912, Ampere, the French scientist, was the first one to coin the term fluoride, or fluor from flow, Latin flow, meaning flux in smelting. 1851, Loyot would make the first recorded death from fluoride, from inhalation of fluoride gases. 86, Moisen would be the first to isolate the fluoride gas. During this decade, studies from scientists would show that animals exposed to either highly fluorinated water next to industrial plants like aluminum or superphosphate fertilizer phosphate deposits in North Africa or volcanic eruptions. We're displaying these changes to their bone and teeth. Also lifeless coats, emaciation, universal weakness, and eventually death from intercurrent disease or wasting away. It wasn't until the 1930s when scientists like Khajrow Halm would start studying cryolite workers, and they would see that they would record these changes in humans. Next slide, please.
Your time has gone well over. Are you about done?
I can just skip through the next few slides. I'll just get to the end. So Margaret C. Smith would, oh wait, if you just slow down. Just have me say like a sentence per slide and we could just continue, just flying past a whole lot. Okay, so in 1931, Margaret Smith and her husband would show that basically this, would coin the term model teeth, and this would basically send industry into a panic state as air pollution evidence is now evident on children's teeth. Next slide. 1937 is when Khajrow Halm, the authority on the matter, he completes his fluorine intoxication. His official recommendation for when it comes to the compounds is the cessation of therapeutic use of fluorine compounds for children. Next slide. So how do we get here when the expert said to not have it come into contact with children? And that's the whole the whole point of the fluoridation program. And the answer is Andrew Mellon. He was the Secretary-Treasurer of the United States from the 1930s. He was also the president of Alcoa and Gulf Oil Corp at the time. These are big fluoride-emitting industries, and he was responsible for putting industrial plants into these government regulatory agencies.
I really, I think that needs to, it's 3 minutes over. It's twice your
Oh,
allotted.
okay, I'm sorry. It's just, okay. So you can just go by. So these are the fathers of fluoridation. They are
You're done.
the...
That's twice what anybody else has had.
Okay.
Thank you for
I
coming.
wasn't realizing, I thought, with the presentation, you guys would let me present and not keep it to the 3.
No, it's always, the fair thing is for everybody to get the same amount, so.
Oh, okay, I just did my time and, made this presentation, but thank you.
The manager, you have that loaded, right, on the, okay, well, he can share that with us.
Yeah,
He can share that with
and
us.
I have all the information and sources, but thank you for your time.
Could you just share one more thing with us, and could you tell us where you heard somebody quoted in a newspaper?
Oh, that
saying
was the Virginia Tech Archives. It was Michael Suffin. He did an interview and he said, they asked him what the most annoying, if there was any things he didn't like about his job, and he said he found it annoying when people came to complain about fluoridation.
Yeah, okay.
I don't even remember that taking place.
Probably 10 years ago, but. Okay, moving on. Who else would like to speak in public comments?
Hello, I'm Daniel Connors. I live at 1240 Treetop Ridge Road, and I'd like to follow up a little bit more on the discussion of the withdrawal of the property, the AFD property. We are very disappointed with the process. Specifically, as pointed out earlier, staff advised that the deed restriction was okay and so forth. We're now told that staff has confirmed with the town attorney that the process of withdrawing land from the AFD is not a mechanism through which private deed covenants may be enforced. The court has to resolve issues regarding deed restrictions. My question to the town is, in a few weeks, you will vote and probably approve of the withdrawal of AFD, and then like clockwork, it is administratively, the subdivision will happen. All the I's and T's and the sidewalk variances and all that have been taken place. My question is, we are very confident that we are correct in our deed interpretation. My question is there a process then to undo a subdivision? How will that take place? Who pays for it? What's the process for undoing it? Because we definitely will prevail in our interpretation. So I would like to know, what is the process when this subdivision takes place? How do we undo it? Because given the timing, we may not be able to, as pointed out here, the court system may not yet have enforced our correct opinion of this. So my question is, how are we going to undo this? Thank you.
I'll speak to this gentleman as well.
I think you need to speak with our town attorney. Who else would like to speak during public comment?
What up, Town Council? My name is Zachary Weiss. I live at 1003 South Main Street. I was looking through the Code of Ordinances 14-200, the definitions, the Article 2 weed and trash abatement, just like talking about what a weed is. And I'll just say really quickly, weed or weeds means any non-native or invasive planted grass or other vegetation over 10 inches in height growing upon private property within the town of Blacksburg. It includes poison ivy. It excludes trees, ornamental shrubbery, vegetable, and flower gardens purposely planted, maintained by the property owner or occupant free of weed, hazard, or nuisance. It excludes cultivated crops or undisturbed woodland not otherwise in violation. Ground cover purposefully planted for bank stabilization is not included. This term excludes cultivated crops and hay grown, mown, and stored for animal feed or undisturbed woodland. So everyone is charged with like this, it says if it shall be unlawful for the owner or occupant of any real property to permit the accumulation therefore or thereon of any trash or weeds. So they need to immediately cut, remove, or destroy any and all weeds and to remove trash from his or her parcel. So this doesn't include replace. It doesn't include replacing the weeds that people just they trim off and just apply a Band-Aid to an issue that we have. So there's a lack of wordage in this part in 14 or in section 14-201, Article 2, section 14 of the Code of Ordinances or whatever. And I just think that there needs to be a charge in some of like the judicial or like the like with the after the notice, and sometimes it's like a fee or whatever, but no, it shouldn't be a fee. It should be community service, and the community service should be to replace the non-native weeds and grasses. So it gives a different incentive to property owners in the town, and they will be able to, I don't know, do something different. I just want change to happen. So I'm trying something, trying to give you guys some ideas. It could be not community service. It could be you have to, like, you're charged to do something with someone, like with Beth, or you have to spend this much money to buy native plants, essentially, instead of just going to the town's coffers and then going to another fund. It goes into, like, you know, actually trying to fix the problem, because it keeps the money where it is. I feel like this is a good like a good policy, a good thing that you should consider, especially since the town is charged with hearing and considering and really trying to do these types of changes, these small changes that everyone wants. Thank you.
Thank you. Who else would like to speak under public comment? Okay, seeing no one, we will move on to making an appointment of our new Director of Engineering. Do we just?
Need a motion.
I don't have a, yeah, okay. I need a motion to appoint Carolyn Howard to the Blacksburg VPI Sanitation Authority.
I move that we appoint Carolyn Howard to the Blacksburg VPI Sanitation Authority.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Sutphen,
Aye.
Watson,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Oliver,
Aye.
Ford,
Aye.
Hager-Smith,
Aye.
Mattingly,
Aye.
We're moving on now to unfinished business, and I have a little bit. Does anybody else have any? Okay. This is in reference to something that happened last time when we were together, and there was a pretty sizable group of people who were protesting the situation in Gaza. And at that time, which was a couple weeks ago now, one of our visitors in chambers entered the gents' room and urinated all over the floor, everywhere. One or more people. I mean, it could have been more than one person. Maybe, whoever you are, you thought you were sticking it to the man. Maybe you imagined you were pissing in solidarity with the Palestinian people, an act of righteous anger. Maybe you wanted to strike out at the town of Blacksburg. Or maybe you thought you'd be hurting this town council. We didn't have to go in there and clean it up. You only hurt one person. You hurt our well-liked, hardworking, blameless custodian. One person who does not deserve to be your scapegoat. Many of the Palestinian protesters have come to us with thoughtful comments, but it's the cowardly, destructive acts of vanity that characterize this group in the eyes of many other people I've spoken to, many of our residents. This isn't leadership, and it's not the way to achieve world peace. It's not even an effective way to protest. I think they can do better. If you're listening, I think you can do better, and I look forward to that happening. Do we have any new business? Council announcements.
I do have a series of announcements. So June is Pride Month all around the country, and we're fortunate that in Blacksburg there's a dedicated group of citizens that have been organizing Pride events in Blacksburg for the second year in a row. Usually in college towns like Blacksburg, there's a lot of events on the college campus, like there's a lot of Pride events at Virginia Tech's campus in April, but this is specifically for everyone in the community. So I'll just share a few things. It started the Pride Week of events. 2 events have already taken place. There was a drag extravaganza at Moon Hollow Brewing and a music jam last night on Draper. Tonight, in 20 minutes from now, there's a free movie showing at the Lyric of a documentary called Break the Game. There's a trivia night on Wednesday at Eastern Divide, a karaoke night on Thursday, a pub crawl on Friday, and a hike and a free yoga class on Saturday. So there's a whole series of events. If you go on either Facebook or Instagram or just look it up on social media, Community Pride in Blacksburg, you can find out all about that. There's also a variety of businesses in town that are participating in some way, whether that's through specials or events that they're having, and so I'll just list those. That would be Blacksburg Wine Lab, Our Daily Bread, Nice Dreams, Peak Strength and Conditioning, Original Frameworks, Inbalance Yoga, New River Art and Fiber, and Santosha Massage. So I just wanted to give a shout out to all of the Pride Month events that were happening, and thanks for all the community members who were involved in organizing that.
And I did.
Go ahead.
I was just going to remind people that Saturday is Solstice Fest at the intersection of Draper and Lee Street. There will be lots of food, beverages, music, a 5K run at sunset, all kinds of fun things going on. So get downtown and have a good time.
Beach yoga.
Beach yoga, that's right. Beach yoga in the Cabo parking lot. So.
There's all kinds of wonderful things going on around Blacksburg. The farmers market, as you all know, is back up on Wednesdays, so it's Wednesdays and Saturdays downtown. Our Friday night outdoor concerts downtown have started again. June 14th will be Rhythm and Blues Domino Band. There will be classic movies at the Lyric. These are happening at 3 p.m. and they're free on certain dates. The next one is Some Like It Hot on June 29th. And again, that's free, classic movie at the Lyric, 3 p.m. And some of you all out there know Joe Kelly, a longtime resident of Blacksburg, and his Unseen Works art exhibition is going on now in the Perspective Gallery at Squire Student Center, and it'll be all summer long. So you have plenty to do around
Let
Blacksburg.
me just add on, there's also Mingle at the Market.
Yes.
Tomorrow night. So it's summer in Blacksburg. It's our best season.
Parking is easy. Parking is easy.
Very good. Any others? In that event, we are now adjourned.